Today, I'm going to interpret for you the book, What You Can Change and What You Can't, by Martin Seligman. In life, you undoubtedly face various issues that trouble you, making you unhappy or even causing you pain. These issues might include bad habits like smoking or excessive drinking, which you know are harmful, yet find difficult to quit. Then, there are negative emotions like irritability, anxiety, and depression that affect your mood. Additionally, conditions such as procrastination, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and social phobia also impact our sense of happiness. You might have tried with great determination and effort to change, but sometimes without success. The book we are sharing today is a classic psychology guide that can help you improve these issues and achieve self-improvement. After reading this book, you will discover that by simply changing your approach, you can easily achieve the desired outcomes. For lifelong learners like you, this book provides effective pathways and ways of thinking for self-improvement, helping you understand what you can change, accept what you cannot, categorize issues, and use your limited resources smartly to gradually achieve self-perfection. Not long ago, the American Psychological Association released its 2017 honors, among which the most prestigious was the Lifetime Achievement Award. The recipient was Dr. Martin Seligman, known as the father of positive psychology. Dr. Seligman, in his inaugural speech as the president of the American Psychological Association, expressed a viewpoint that caused quite a stir. He aimed not only to reduce the suffering of the distressed, but to increase the happiness of the happy. Unlike other psychologists who focus on lifting people from a -8 to -2, his goal is to help someone enhance their life from +2 to +6. This speech marked the birth of positive psychology. Dr. Seligman has extended the secrets of learning happiness to many projects, from Britain's top private schools like Wellington College to the U.S. Army, from the British government to the European Mars Mission 2020. He also proposed a moonshot for positive psychology by 2051 to have over half of the world's adults, or 51%, achieving a happy and successful life. What You Can Change and What You Can't is designed by Seligman as an ideal starting point for your journey to a happy, successful life, to understand and accept yourself. It helps you accept the parts of yourself that are unchangeable, find new ways to solve problems, and also understand the aspects of yourself that can overcome nature, effortlessly resolving issues and quickly improving yourself. Next, I will interpret this book from 3 perspectives. First, what factors determine whether an issue troubling you can be changed? Second, specifically, which issues can be changed, which are hard to change, and which cannot be changed at all. Third, how to start making changes right now. Before we begin, consider this question. Which of the following 3 options do you think is the hardest to achieve lasting change? Social phobia, alcoholism, obesity. The answer to this question will be covered in today's interpretation. Let's first discuss what determines whether a problem troubling you can change. Do you feel the same way as I do? There are already too many psychological therapies, parenting methods, and self-improvement techniques in the world, but most of them are ineffective for you. You've already wasted so much time and endured many unnecessary setbacks. Why is this? Seligman believes that it's because these methods have taken the wrong approach, always trying to change things that inherently cannot be changed or are very difficult to change. No amount of effort will help in changing the unchangeable. So, how can we distinguish what can be changed from what cannot? Seligman believes it entirely depends on how deep-rooted an issue is. Superficial issues are easier to change, while deep-rooted issues are much harder. How can we determine if a problem is superficial or deep-rooted? Seligman suggests examining the problem from 3 levels: biological, evidential, and power. First, the biological level. The more closely a problem is related to innate physiological mechanisms, the deeper it is biologically, and the harder it is to change such issues. When facing such problems, one shouldn't stubbornly persist but should accept reality first, and then try to find alternative solutions. For instance, if you want to fly, but your genetics clearly do not support this ability, no amount of practice will enable you to achieve this dream. However, if you accept this reality early, you might invent an airplane to achieve the dream of flying by other means. Another example Seligman mentions is fatigue, a normal physiological reaction that is almost impossible to change. People often confront issues related to fatigue head-on. For example, snipers in combat tasks must stay alert for days without sleep. This extreme fatigue affects their shooting accuracy. Previously, the Army tried psychological interventions or even medicating snipers to alleviate fatigue, which proved ineffective. Seligman proposed a genuinely effective training method for the military. Since fatigue is a physiological response difficult to change, it's better to fully accept it and train snipers to shoot accurately under extreme fatigue. The same principle applies to fighter pilots who face fear, a normal physiological response nearly impossible to change. Instead of trying to reduce or change their fear, training should focus on making correct decisions and operations under intense fear. Back to everyday life, consider obesity caused by genetics. It represents a deep-rooted biological issue, making it nearly impossible to lose weight permanently. After discussing biological depth, let's talk about the evidential level. The more supporting evidence there is for a problem, the harder it is to change. Conversely, the easier it is to find evidence against it, the easier it is to change. Here's an example. A friend of mine rented a Toyota for a family trip in the US. After shopping, they returned to find their car key didn't work. Despite trying various methods and even calling a locksmith, the issue wasn't resolved until a security guard noticed the key was for a Toyota, but the car was a Honda. They had mistaken another car for theirs, similar in appearance but not the same. This situation illustrates how retreating a step and viewing from a wider perspective turns a tragedy into a comedy, revealing the psychological trap of over-identification, where one digs deeper into a problem by continuously seeking supporting evidence. By stepping back, observing the issue objectively from a broader view, one can see more contradictory evidence, allowing for adjustments and resolutions. Now, let's consider the power level. The stronger the force of belief exerted on a problem, the harder it is to change. Conversely, the weaker the force of belief, the easier it is to change. For example, a mother with obsessive-compulsive disorder who believes her hands' germs could harm her child will be compelled to wash her hands obsessively. The stronger her belief, the harder it is to change her compulsion. An extreme example is the Jews in concentration camps, who soon developed a fixation that survival was unlikely, influencing their ability to adapt to harsh conditions. However, the Jewish psychologist Viktor Frankl focused on reinforcing a different belief, that he had many meaningful things to accomplish, despite his manuscripts being confiscated in Auschwitz. His strong desire to rewrite his book helped him overcome severe typhus and other challenges in the camp. If Frankl had succumbed to the common belief of low survival chances, he wouldn't have overcome his challenges. His survival belief shattered his fixation. Thus, the first aspect I explain is whether a problem troubling you can change, determined by its biological depth, evidence level, and the power of belief. You can observe which level most influences your behavior to assess the difficulty of making changes. After discussing the factors that determine the difficulty of change, you now understand that self-improvement varies in difficulty. Next, I will exemplify the ease or difficulty of changing specific problems, starting with those that are nearly impossible to change. For instance, for 90% of people who are overweight, dieting only has temporary effects. Your genetic and biological markers set an ideal weight, and changing this requires genetic testing to identify your specific gene type, which might dictate whether you need to reduce carbohydrates, fats, or alter your overall diet. Alternatively, you might need to modify your gut bacteria through other means. Simply dieting without targeting these factors is harmful. Like obesity, other hard-to-change issues include genetic predispositions like alcoholism and sexual orientation, determined during fetal development. Deep-rooted biological factors make these issues nearly immutable. Let's also consider issues that, despite considerable effort, change very little. Anxiety is familiar to many. If you failed a couple of exams, you might worry about the next one, potentially leading to insomnia. People who've experienced fires might have nightmares, and firefighters who've rescued others from fires might wake from nightmares. Many believe anxiety is easy to change and are eager to do so, but it's not only hard to change but also essential to retain. Why is anxiety hard to change? It has a strong evolutionary basis, embedded in our personality and genetics. Anxiety serves as a warning alarm for danger, prompting deep thought and strategic planning to find solutions, acting as your mental security guard. It ensures you check your home, work, and leisure activities until it identifies issues, prompting immediate action upon discovery. Therefore, maintaining a normal level of anxiety is crucial. Imagine normal anxiety as a car's blinking, low-fuel warning light. Cutting the power to stop the light from blinking might let you focus on driving temporarily, but eventually, the car will stall. If the anxiety isn't severe, you should respond calmly, listen to its directions, and change your external life rather than your emotional state. Similar to anxiety, depression and anger are also difficult to change and essential for signaling that something adverse is occurring, urging immediate action to alleviate these feelings. The book, Know Yourself, Accept Yourself, includes scales to measure anxiety, depression, and temper, allowing you to regularly assess your emotional state. Seligman also provides practical methods to appropriately reduce these emotions, which are easy to use and effective. Give them a try and you'll see. Now, let's discuss issues that many believe are hard to change, but can actually be completely eliminated with little effort, such as sudden panic attacks, characterized by chest pain, excessive sweating, nausea, dizziness, and loss of control. Many people mistakenly think these symptoms are untreatable, even with medication, and suspect genetic causes or brain issues. However, panic attacks can be completely cured easily. The famous novel, The Angel of the Bridge, tells a story of a successful man who crosses a bridge during a storm, experiencing an overwhelming fear that the bridge might collapse. Afterward, whenever he drove over any bridge, his panic attacks would occur, despite attempts to control his fear through self-discipline and medication. All efforts failed. One sunny day, as he approached a bridge he had to cross, his panic attack was about to begin, and he couldn't proceed. At that moment, a lovely girl resembling a small angel, carrying a harp, approached him for a ride across the bridge. Out of adult dignity, he couldn't refuse the charming little girl's request and started the car. As the girl played the harp and sang a beautiful song in the bright sunshine, all these pleasant things occupied his mind, making him unconsciously forget his fear of the bridge collapsing. From that day on, his panic attacks were cured. Research shows that panic attacks are superficial in a person's physiological responses. People often wrongly connect symptoms like rapid heartbeat and fast breathing to impending heart attacks or major health crises. However, this connection is easily disprovable. External distractions that shift their focus can demonstrate that their original worries won't materialize, thus completely curing their panic disorder. Besides panic attacks, fears of animals, insects, or specific objects can also be easily eliminated. The movie The King's Speech illustrates this well, telling the story of King George VI of England, who overcame his speech impediment and stuttering to become a great monarch needed during wartime. Psychologists gathered university students afraid of public speaking for an experiment. They divided the students into 3 groups. One took placebos to reduce stress during speeches, another received clinical psychological treatment to explore the deep-seated fears behind their public speaking anxiety, and the third group underwent a method called systematic desensitization. What is systematic desensitization? It involves helping students rebuild the connection between specific scenarios and relaxation responses, gradually teaching them to relax, starting with speaking alone in a room, then dressing formally for speeches, eventually speaking in front of familiar friends, and finally, speaking in front of a large crowd. The results showed that this third group, which used systematic desensitization, had the best change outcomes. They not only overcame their fear of public speaking, but also significantly improved their academic performance throughout college. This method effectively helps people directly overcome issues like speech impediments, facial tics, and stuttering without recurrence. I've explained the second aspect, the difficulty of changing various issues. Hard-to-change issues include dieting for weight loss, alcoholism, and sexual orientation, which involve complex biological mechanisms. We've also discussed emotions like anxiety, depression, and anger, which, while difficult to change, are essential. Finally, we covered issues that are easier to change, such as panic disorders and irrational fears caused by mistaken beliefs. Do you remember the question I left you with before starting the explanation? Which of the following 3 options do you think is the hardest to achieve lasting change? Social phobia, alcoholism, obesity. You should now understand that the correct answer is the third option. Your frequent mood swings, shyness, bad temper, and social fears are easier to change than your love for alcohol, and your drinking habit is easier to change than your waistline. So, if you're prepared to face different changes with varying efforts, you'll be better able to manage your expectations and plan your change strategies more effectively. Next, let me explain how you can start making changes from now. In the first part, we discuss Seligman's concept of depth in self-improvement, a viewpoint long ignored by other scientists. Changes to superficial aspects are much easier than those to deeper issues. This might sound deterministic. For instance, can problems caused by childhood trauma be changed? Many adults, once they begin to examine their issues and desire change, often look back at their childhoods and blame their current misfortunes on those early experiences. For example, the daughter of former U.S. President Reagan, known as one of the most rebellious and unconventional first daughters, blamed her parents for her issues. She never forgot being slapped by her mother at age 8. She felt she didn't receive enough love because her parents were too in love with each other. So, how much does one's childhood really affect their life? To what extent can an adult change and free themselves from the bonds of their childhood? According to Seligman, childhood experiences, even traumatic ones, don't have as exaggerated an impact as we might think. Many personality traits can still change in adulthood. Rigorous scientific studies have shown that apart from genetics, childhood has little serious impact on adult life. If you must blame your parents, it can only be for the genes they passed on to you, not their parenting style. Whether you were disciplined with a ruler at school, raised according to a parenting book, fed on schedule, or ate when hungry. These factors only slightly impact your personality. There is absolutely no need for an emancipation ritual from your parents to change your life, as some experts suggest. The author continually emphasizes in the book that certain factors are crucially influential, but ultimately, it is you who determines your fate and performance. Having listened to the previous two parts and understood the ease or difficulty of changing various issues, you can decide whether or not to change. If you decide to change but don't know where to start, Seligman suggests that you should begin with the problem that troubles you the most, even if it's one of the hardest to change at the biological level. Hollywood star Angelina Jolie, an idol for many, made a significant decision in 2013. She underwent genetic testing for the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, which are associated with an increased risk of breast and ovarian cancers. Why did Angelina undergo this genetic testing? Because her grandmother, mother, and aunt had all suffered from these cancers. The tests showed that Angelina had an 87% risk of developing breast cancer and a 50% risk of ovarian cancer. Shockingly, she then chose to undergo a double mastectomy among other surgeries. Angelina Jolie's decision to remove her breasts was a risk-laden one, but she believed that facing the threat of death and making brave choices was because she loved life more passionately and cherished it more than others. I share Angelina Jolie's story with you to illustrate that everyone has a different understanding and plan for their life. Although genes are among the hardest aspects to change, you still have the opportunity to challenge them. As long as a person is willing to make the greatest effort towards deep-seated changes, they can truly be the hero of their own life. Seligman says in this book that his research aim is not to shatter your aspirations for changing yourself, nor to guarantee that you can change in any particular way. What he really wants to do is help you build a realistic optimism and confidence in successfully changing yourself, while also helping you dispel any blind optimism and confidence. He hopes to provide you with practical optimism, encouraging you to invest your limited money, time, and energy into behaviors and mental states that you can change. Furthermore, if a hard-to-change behavior or mental state greatly impacts your life, you must muster firm confidence and courage to prepare for a prolonged battle with it, rather than giving up easily. Seligman believes this is the wisest approach to achieving self-improvement. By changing your perceptions, you can change your feelings, your behaviors, and ultimately your destiny. When you ask yourself again, "Can I really change?" Imagine Seligman looking into your eyes. He would counter with, "Are you truly willing to change?" This concludes the 3 aspects of the book I have interpreted for you. Let me briefly recap. The first aspect discussed which factors determine whether your change is effective. Superficial changes are much easier, while deep-rooted changes are much more difficult. These can be defined from 3 levels: biological, evidential, and power. The second aspect helped you understand the varying degrees of difficulty in changing different issues, with hard-to-change matters like dieting, alcoholism, and sexual orientation. We also shared emotionally significant, hard-to-change issues like anxiety, depression, and anger. Lastly, we talked about situations that are easier to change, such as panic disorders and irrational fears caused by incorrect perceptions. That's the essence of this book. You can click the description below the video to find the link to the book. Welcome to read it. You can also share this book with your friends. If you like the content of Daily Book Dive, click the subscribe button to stay updated. Your support helps us continue bringing book essence to our community. Congratulations, you've finished another book.